The moment Jasmine Carter lifted the fork of sweet potato casserole to her lips, her training kicked in, the slightly bitter undertone, the faint chemical smell masked by cinnamon, the way her mother-in-law's eyes tracked every movement toward her mouth with predatory focus. She set the fork down slowly, her left hand instinctively moving to protect the tiny life growing inside her, the baby she and Marcus had tried 7 years to conceive, while her right hand reached for the phone to text her FBI partner the code they had established for emergencies. Across the candlelit Thanksgiving table, surrounded by crystal glassware and her husband's unsuspecting family, Jasmine realized the woman who had smiled at their wedding, who had cried tears that now seemed manufactured, wanted her dead, and her unborn child along with her. The stakes were impossibly clear: her life, her baby's life, her marriage, and every dream she and Marcus had built together over 9 beautiful years. One question burned through her mind as she watched Patricia Carter dab her lips with a linen napkin, eyes still fixed on that untouched casserole. How long had her mother-in-law been planning this, and was Marcus part of it? Jasmine Carter was 34 years old, with warm brown skin that seemed to glow with the subtle radiance of early pregnancy. Her natural black hair was styled in elegant twists pulled back from her face, and she wore a flowing burgundy wrap dress that gracefully accommodated her small but precious 14-week bump. Her dark brown eyes, usually sharp with the intelligence that had made her one of the FBI's most decorated young agents, now softened with the vulnerability of impending motherhood. Standing at 5'7", she carried herself with the quiet confidence of someone who had faced down criminals, testified in federal court, and never once flinched, until today, when the threat came from inside her own family. Her husband Marcus Carter sat beside her, a handsome 40-year-old man with deep brown skin and a clean-shaved head that highlighted his strong features. He wore a tailored navy sweater over a white button-down shirt, his athletic build a testament to his dedication as a physical therapist who practiced what he preached. His warm brown eyes crinkled when he smiled, which was often, and his hand rested on Jasmine's knee beneath the table with the comfortable intimacy of a man deeply in love with his wife. He had no idea that his mother, the woman who had raised him with apparent devotion, was attempting to murder his wife and unborn child just 3 feet away. Patricia Carter sat at the head of the table like a queen surveying her kingdom, a 62-year-old woman with light brown skin and silver-streaked black hair swept into an elegant updo. She wore a cream-colored cashmere sweater set with a strand of pearls that Marcus's late father had given her on their 30th anniversary, and her hazel eyes held a warmth that Jasmine had always found slightly performative. Her manicured hands, adorned with tasteful gold rings, had prepared every dish on this table with what everyone believed was maternal love. Her smile never wavered as she watched Jasmine not eat. "Jasmine, dear, you've barely touched my casserole," Patricia said, her voice honey-sweet. "I made it specially for you. I know how much you've been craving sweet things with the pregnancy." Jasmine felt Marcus squeeze her knee affectionately. She forced a smile, years of undercover work keeping her expression neutral while her mind raced through protocols and possibilities. "I'm just savoring everything, Patricia. It all looks so beautiful." "The baby needs nutrition," Patricia pressed, something flickering behind her eyes. "You really should eat more. You're eating for 2 now." The words dripped with false concern, and Jasmine recognized the manipulation technique instantly. She had seen it in interrogation rooms, in the eyes of criminals who smiled while they calculated their next move. But she needed proof. She needed to understand the scope of what she was facing. Most importantly, she needed to protect her baby and figure out if her husband was an innocent bystander or a co-conspirator. "Marcus," Jasmine said softly, turning to her husband, "would you get me some water from the kitchen? The sparkling kind?" He kissed her temple and stood immediately, his devotion evident in every movement. "Anything for my girls. I still think it's a girl." "We don't know that yet," Jasmine laughed, but her eyes tracked Patricia's expression as Marcus left the room. The mask slipped, just for a moment, a flash of pure contempt that transformed the elegant grandmother's face into something cold and calculating. That's when Jasmine knew with certainty, Patricia Carter was acting alone, and Marcus was as much a victim of his mother's deception as she was. "You know," Patricia said quietly, leaning forward as if sharing a secret. "I've been meaning to tell you something, Jasmine. Just between us women." "What's that?" "My son deserves better than you. He always has." The words hung in the air, finally exposed after years of passive-aggressive comments and backhanded compliments that Marcus always excused as his mother, meaning well. Jasmine kept her expression neutral, her FBI training turning this moment into an opportunity for intelligence gathering. "Patricia, I eat the casserole." Patricia's voice hardened, losing its honey coating. "I insist." Marcus returned with the sparkling water, and Patricia's mask slipped back into place so seamlessly that Jasmine felt a chill run down her spine. This woman had been hiding her true nature for years, perhaps decades. The question was, what had finally pushed her to action? Jasmine excused herself to the bathroom, locking the door and immediately calling her partner, Special Agent Derek Williams. "Carter, it's Thanksgiving. This better be Code Violet. My mother-in-law. I need toxicology on a food sample. It's the casserole." Her voice was barely above a whisper. "Derek, I'm 14 weeks pregnant." The pause on the other end spoke volumes. They had worked together for 8 years, and Derek knew her instincts were never wrong. "I'm en route." "Jasmine, are you safe?" "For now. I didn't eat it. But I don't know what else might be contaminated." "Don't eat anything." "Nothing. I'll be there in 20 minutes with a field kit." Jasmine hung up and stared at her reflection in the ornate bathroom mirror. The face staring back at her was the same one that had gone undercover with dangerous criminal organizations, the same one that had testified against cartel leaders without trembling. But tonight, that face also belonged to a mother whose child was threatened by someone who should have been family. She touched her belly gently. "I've got you, little one. Mama's got you." When she returned to the dining room, Patricia was serving dessert with theatrical flourishes, her pumpkin pie receiving compliments from Marcus's younger sister and her husband. Jasmine watched the older woman's hands carefully, noticing how she served Jasmine a specific slice from the edge of the pie, turning the plate so that particular piece faced her daughter-in-law directly. The targeted serving told Jasmine everything she needed to know. Patricia had prepared something specifically for her, hidden within the holiday feast like a serpent among flowers. "Actually, Patricia, my morning sickness has been acting up all day," Jasmine said sweetly. "I don't think I can handle dessert." "But Marcus, honey, why don't you try my slice?" Patricia's face paled visibly. "No, Marcus, I made your favorite chocolate cake. It's in the kitchen. Let me get you a piece instead." "Mom, the pie is right here." "I insist." Patricia's voice pitched slightly higher, desperation creeping through. "That slice it's not my best work. The edge pieces never set right. Let me get you the cake." Jasmine filed away every micro-expression, every tell, every slip in Patricia's carefully constructed facade. This woman had planned meticulously, but she hadn't planned for her target to be a trained investigator who noticed everything. The doorbell rang, and Jasmine's heart steadied. "That's probably my colleague from work. I asked him to drop off some papers I forgot." She opened the door to Derek Williams, a tall 45-year-old man with dark brown skin and graying temples that gave him a distinguished appearance. He wore civilian clothes, a brown leather jacket over a simple sweater, but his eyes held the sharp alertness of a man who had spent 20 years with the Bureau. He carried a briefcase that Jasmine knew contained a portable testing kit. "Happy Thanksgiving," Derek said loudly enough for the dining room to hear. "Sorry to interrupt, but I have those case files you needed. Come in, come in. Let me introduce you to everyone." The introductions were made, pleasantries exchanged, and Derek accepted Patricia's offer of pie with the gracious smile of a man who was absolutely going to test every molecule of that dessert. Jasmine watched him discreetly palm samples while appearing to simply enjoy his food. Marcus, ever the welcoming host, engaged Derek in conversation about football while Jasmine helped Patricia clear plates in the kitchen. It was a calculated move, getting the suspect alone, establishing rapport while gathering intelligence. "You have a beautiful home," Jasmine said, watching Patricia rinse dishes with mechanical precision. "And this dinner was incredible. You must have been planning it for weeks." "Months, actually," Patricia said, and something in her voice made Jasmine's blood run cold. "Some things require careful preparation." "I can imagine." Patricia turned, her hazel eyes locking onto Jasmine's with an intensity that dropped all pretense of warmth. Can you really imagine what it's like to watch your only son throw away his life on someone who doesn't deserve him? Someone who keeps him from his family, who makes him forget where he came from? Jasmine's mind raced through case files, through profiles of perpetrators who justified their crimes through twisted logic. "Patricia, I love Marcus. I would never. You were supposed to give him children." Patricia's voice dropped to a venomous whisper. 7 years, Jasmine. 7 years of watching my son suffer because you couldn't do the one thing a wife is supposed to do. And now, suddenly, miraculously, you're pregnant? When it's too late? When he's already wasted the best years of his life? It's not too late. We're having this baby. We're happy. You're lying. Patricia's eyes glittered with something that looked like madness wrapped in elegance. The baby isn't his. It can't be his. I've seen the fertility reports. I know my son can't. She stopped abruptly, seeming to catch herself. Jasmine's training screamed at her to keep the conversation going, to extract more information. "Patricia, Marcus and I went through treatment together. The baby is his. You can do a test after the birth if you. There won't be an after." The words were spoken so quietly that Jasmine almost didn't hear them, but she did. She heard every syllable, and they confirmed what she already knew. Patricia Carter had just confessed to attempted murder. Jasmine's phone buzzed in her pocket, Derek's signal that he had completed his initial analysis. She excused herself to the living room, her heart pounding with a mixture of validation and devastating grief. She had been right, but being right meant that her husband's mother had truly tried to kill her and her unborn child. "Oleander extract," Derek whispered when she joined him by the fireplace. "In the casserole and concentrated in that specific pie slice. Enough to induce cardiac arrest within hours, probably while you slept tonight. It would have looked like a pregnancy complication." Jasmine closed her eyes, one hand pressed against her belly. She thought of everything. Not everything. She didn't know she was messing with one of the best agents I've ever worked with. Derek's hand gripped her shoulder. "We need to make the arrest, Jasmine. But I can call someone else if." "No." Jasmine's voice was steady despite the tears threatening to spill. "This is my family. My case. My arrest." She walked back into the dining room where Marcus, his sister, and their spouses were laughing at some shared memory from childhood. Patricia sat at the head of the table, the picture of maternal contentment, watching her children with what anyone else would have seen as love. Jasmine saw it differently now. She saw possessiveness. She saw control. She saw a woman who would rather destroy her family than accept someone she deemed unworthy. "Patricia." Jasmine's voice cut through the laughter like a blade. "Would you come with me to the kitchen? There's something we need to discuss." The older woman rose gracefully, her smile never wavering, but Jasmine caught the calculating glance toward the back door. Flight assessment. Patricia was already planning her escape. "Of course, dear." Derek positioned himself casually by the back entrance while Marcus started to rise from his chair. "Everything okay, babe?" "Just girl talk," Jasmine said, her heart breaking at the confusion in her husband's eyes. "We'll just be a minute." In the kitchen, with the door closed and Derek's backup visible through the window, Jasmine faced her mother-in-law for the final time as family. "Patricia Carter, I'm Special Agent Jasmine Carter with the Federal Bureau of Investigation." She pulled her badge from her purse, watching Patricia's mask finally crumble completely. "You're under arrest for attempted murder." "What?" Patricia's voice rose to a shriek. "This is absurd. I'm calling my lawyer." "Marcus! Marcus!" The door burst open and Marcus stood there, his face a portrait of confusion and dawning horror. "What's going on?" "Jasmine, why are you arresting my mother?" "Mr. Carter." Derek stepped forward, his voice professionally calm. "Your mother placed oleander extract in the food specifically prepared for your wife. If your wife had consumed it, both she and your unborn child would have died, likely within hours." Marcus staggered backward as if physically struck. "No. No, that's impossible. Mom, tell them they're wrong. Tell them." Patricia's face contorted with rage as Derek secured her wrists with handcuffs. "She's not good enough for you, Marcus. She never was. That baby isn't even yours. I was protecting you. I was protecting our family. She is my family." Marcus's voice broke on the words, tears streaming down his face. "Jasmine is my wife. That's my child. Mom, how could you? How could you?" "You'll understand someday," Patricia said, her voice suddenly calm and cold as she was led toward the front door. "When you're free of her, you'll thank me. I did this for you, Marcus. Everything I've ever done was for you." The sound of her mother-in-law being placed in the back of a federal vehicle should have felt like victory. Instead, Jasmine felt only devastating loss as she watched her husband collapse onto a kitchen chair, his shoulders shaking with sobs. The man she loved more than anything in the world had just discovered that his mother was a would-be killer, and his family was forever shattered. She went to him, kneeling before his chair and taking his hands in hers. "Marcus. Look at me. Please look at me." His eyes met hers, and she saw everything there, the disbelief, the betrayal, the grief, and underneath it all, the fear. Fear that this would destroy them. Fear that he would somehow lose her after almost losing her permanently. "I'm so sorry," he whispered. "I'm so sorry I didn't see it. I didn't know. Jasmine, I didn't know." "I know you didn't." She pressed his hands against her belly, against the slight swell where their miracle grew. "This isn't your fault. None of this is your fault. If you had eaten," his voice cracked. "If she had succeeded. But she didn't. I'm here. Our baby is here. We're safe, Marcus. We're safe." He pulled her onto his lap, wrapping his arms around her so tightly that she could barely breathe, but she didn't complain. She understood the desperate need to hold on to what you almost lost, to physically confirm that your world hadn't ended. "I love you," he said into her hair. "I love you so much, Jasmine. I don't know what I would do if." "You don't have to think about that." She pulled back just enough to cup his face in her hands, wiping away his tears with her thumbs. "We're going to get through this. Together. Like we've gotten through everything else." The weeks that followed were the hardest of their marriage. The investigation revealed that Patricia had been planning this for months, since she first learned of Jasmine's pregnancy. She had researched poisons that could mimic pregnancy complications, practiced preparing dishes that would mask the bitter taste of oleander, and even created a forged letter from a supposed fertility clinic claiming that Marcus was sterile, her proof that the baby couldn't be his. The trial was brutal. Patricia's defense attorney tried to paint Jasmine as a neglectful wife who had alienated a lonely widow, but the evidence was overwhelming. Text messages to friends revealed Patricia's true feelings about her daughter-in-law. Internet searches showed queries about untraceable poisons and pregnancy-related deaths. The carefully labeled containers of oleander extract found in her home provided the final, damning proof. Marcus testified against his own mother, tears streaming down his face as he recounted every warning sign he had missed, every excuse he had made for her behavior over the years. Jasmine held his hand through every moment, whispering words of love and support during the breaks, reminding him that his bravery was protecting not just her but their child. Patricia was sentenced to 25 years in federal prison for attempted murder. She showed no remorse at sentencing, only glaring at Jasmine with pure hatred as she was led away. After the trial, Marcus went through what Jasmine could only describe as a complete unraveling. He questioned everything about his childhood, every memory of his mother, every belief he had held about family and love. Some nights he couldn't sleep, tormented by the knowledge that the woman who had raised him was capable of such evil. Other nights he woke up screaming from nightmares where Jasmine had eaten the casserole, where he had to bury his wife and child because he hadn't protected them. Through it all, Jasmine was there. Her training had taught her to face danger, but loving Marcus through his darkest moments taught her something more profound, that true strength wasn't about fighting external enemies but about staying present when someone you loved was fighting internal battles you couldn't win for them. "I don't know who I am anymore," Marcus confessed one night, lying in bed with his hand on Jasmine's growing belly. "My whole life, I thought I knew my mother. I thought I knew my family. But it was all a lie." Jasmine threaded her fingers through his. "Not all of it. Your mother's choices were her own. They don't define who you are or what we have. The love you have for our baby, the love you have for me, that's real, Marcus. That's who you are. How do you do it?" He looked at her with wonder and pain. "How are you so strong? She tried to kill you, Jasmine. She tried to kill our baby. And you're the one comforting me. Because I love you." The words were simple but carried the weight of everything they had survived together. "Because our baby is going to need a father who knows he's worthy of love. Because what your mother did says everything about her and nothing about you." He kissed her then, deeply and desperately, pouring 9 years of love and several months of trauma into the connection. When they finally pulled apart, there were tears on both their faces. "I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you know how much I love you," Marcus whispered. "Both of you." Their daughter was born on a spring morning, arriving with a cry that echoed through the hospital room like music. Marcus cut the umbilical cord with shaking hands, tears streaming down his face as he held his daughter for the first time. "She's perfect," he breathed, looking at Jasmine with overwhelming love. "You're both perfect." They named her Hope, a name that carried the weight of everything they had survived and everything they dreamed for the future. Hope had her father's warm brown eyes and her mother's determined spirit, and from her very first moments, she was surrounded by love that was fierce, protective, and unconditional. Derek Williams became Uncle Derek, visiting so often that Hope's first word after Mama and Dada was Dek, her baby pronunciation of his name. He had officially requested to be Jasmine's partner for the rest of his career, and there were few things he wouldn't do for the little girl who had almost never existed. On Hope's first birthday, Marcus stood before their gathered friends, the family they had chosen rather than the family that had failed them, and raised a glass. "1 year ago today, I became a father. But more than that, I became a man who truly understood what love means." He looked at Jasmine, holding their daughter in her arms, both of them glowing in the soft light of birthday candles. "My wife taught me that love isn't about where you come from or what family you were born into. It's about choosing each other, every single day, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard." His voice cracked, and Jasmine saw the tears he was trying to hold back. "I almost lost everything that matters to me. But instead, I gained something I never knew I was missing, a real family. A wife who protects our daughter with the same fierce courage she uses to protect strangers. A daughter who reminds me every day that the future is worth fighting for." He crossed the room and knelt before Jasmine and Hope, taking both of their hands in his. "I know I've said it 1,000 times, and I'll say it 1,000 more. Thank you for seeing something in me worth loving. Thank you for fighting for our family. Thank you for being you." Jasmine's tears fell freely as she leaned forward to kiss him, Hope giggling between them at the display of affection. The room erupted in applause, but neither of them heard it. In that moment, there was only the three of them, a family forged in fire and bound by a love that no amount of darkness could destroy. Later that night, after the guests had left and Hope was sleeping peacefully in her nursery, Jasmine and Marcus stood on their back porch, looking up at a sky full of stars. "Do you ever regret it?" Marcus asked quietly. "Marrying me? Joining my family?" Jasmine considered the question carefully before answering. "I regret that your mother couldn't see how beautiful our love is. I regret that Hope will never know her grandmother. I regret every moment of pain you've had to endure." She turned to face him, taking both his hands. "But marry you? Have hope? Build this life together? I would do it all again, Marcus. Every single moment. Because loving you has made me the woman I was always meant to be." He pulled her close, and they stood there together, wrapped in each other's arms, breathing in the peace they had fought so hard to achieve. "You know what I've learned through all of this?" Marcus murmured against her hair. "What?" "That the family we're born into doesn't define us. What defines us is the family we create, the love we choose to give, and the people we choose to protect." He pulled back to look into her eyes. "You protected me in hope when I couldn't even see the danger. You loved me through my darkest moments. You showed me what family really means." Jasmine smiled, her hand moving to rest on her belly, where, unknown to either of them yet, a second miracle was already beginning. "That's what love does, Marcus. It protects. It heals. It creates something beautiful out of the broken pieces." Years later, when Hope was old enough to understand, she would ask about her grandmother. Jasmine and Marcus would tell her the truth, age-appropriately, without bitterness or blame. They explained that sometimes people made terrible choices, but those choices didn't have to define the people they hurt. They taught her that family was about love in action, not blood obligation. They showed her, every single day, what it meant to choose each other. Hope grew up to be a young woman of remarkable compassion and strength, a doctor who specialized in protecting the most vulnerable. She often said that her mother's courage had inspired her to fight for others, while her father's gentleness had taught her how to heal. The darkness of her family's history became not a shadow over her life but a foundation for understanding that light was always possible, even in the darkest places. And every Thanksgiving, the family gathered, not to remember the terrible meal that had almost ended everything, but to celebrate the love that had emerged from the ashes. The table was filled with chosen family, friends who had become siblings, colleagues who had become aunts and uncles. The food was prepared with joy, served with gratitude, and eaten with the profound appreciation of people who understood how precious every moment together truly was. In the end, Patricia Carter's hatred had failed to destroy what she could never understand, that real love, the kind worth fighting for, the kind worth dying for, cannot be poisoned, cannot be manipulated, and cannot be killed. It grows stronger under pressure, more resilient in adversity, and more beautiful for having survived. Jasmine Carter had walked into that Thanksgiving dinner as a wife, an agent, and an expectant mother. She had walked out as all three, but also as something more, living proof that when you fight for the people you love with everything you have, when you choose courage over fear and truth over comfort, you can transform even the darkest betrayal into the foundation for an extraordinary life. If this story touched your heart, if it made you believe in the power of love to overcome even the greatest darkness, hit like and subscribe for more life-changing stories. Share it with someone who needs to remember that they are worthy of a love that protects, a family that chooses them, and a future filled with hope. Because in the end, we are not defined by those who try to destroy us. We are defined by how we choose to love after the storm has passed, and there is always, always something beautiful waiting on the other side.